A lot of people believe that you have to be super techy or spend a lot of money on technology to leverage it to help you build your online business. Because everywhere you look today, someone has something fancy or a new shiny object is coming out. And oftentimes more than not, we feel like we should go buy it. But the truth is, it's only one real time you should go out and buy new technology when you're building an online business or when you're building a business, any type of business for that matter. Let's dig into it. All right. So the honest reason is you shouldn't go out and buy new tech because, well, you don't have to go out and buy new tech because the more technology you have, the more complexity you enter into your business. For example, I wanted a studio setup, meaning I wanted the green screen, I wanted the full work. And I went out and I bought it. I went to Amazon, I spent a lot of money, got everything. And then what I realized is because I had to set up all this stuff every time I was ready to film, I didn't cut as many videos as I would had I had a simpler setup. So it's something to be said about simplicity, especially when you're brand new building a business online. Trust me, I geek out on the tech stuff. Like, I am a techie. If you looked around my home office, you would say, yeah, this dude is a techie. However, what I've learned over time is when you go out and buy a new piece of tech and you introduce it, or you go out and buy the new latest shiniest thing and introduce that into your workflow, what you're doing is you're adding more complexity to your workflow. So for example, I went from that green screen where I spent hours trying to figure out how to cut myself out of to a nice plain wall that used to be white that I painted this color with some images behind me. Now I don't have to worry about trying to cut myself out. I don't have to worry about if I got that little halo around myself and how to soften it up and make it look like my background is actually normal versus that little glow you see going around people because they didn't properly mask it out and then they didn't feather it like they were supposed to. So I don't have to worry about that. So you honestly don't have to be a techie. Plus, you have to remember with technology, you can go as deep as you want to go with technology. It's kind of like being in a car. If you get in your car and let's say you're on an open highway, sure, you can do 75 or 80 or 90, depending upon what the speed limit is. Then you can do 5 to 8 miles over that. But here's the deal. You don't have to go over the speed limit. You can drive that car to your comfortability and what you're comfortable with versus a NASCAR driver. They get in the cars and religiously do around 220 miles per hour. Why? Because that's how fast they want to take that car. But if we get in that same car and we're not comfortable at 220 going around a turn, we don't have to do that. We can leverage that same car to go around those turns and have the same experience they have at our comfortability. Now, probably NASCAR probably wasn't the best analogy, but I'm sure you understand what I'm saying. So with technology, I don't want you to be afraid of technology because oftentimes, more times than not, when I see people held up, it's because they're afraid of the technology. Just because I use my MacBook Pro to use DaVinci Resolve doesn't mean you have to use your MacBook Pro to use DaVinci Resolve. Or if I'm using my MacBook Pro to do DaVinci Resolve and a few certain plugins and color grades, don't mean you have to use DaVinci Resolve and learn all those things. You can get DaVinci Resolve and use DaVinci Resolve for what you need it to do and no more. So I really want you to understand that technology really isn't something that you have to be worried about or afraid of or, kind of standoffish from, because honestly, technology is what you make of it. How's it going? Digital DIY Geek here, and welcome to This is Tech Talk. Now, in Tech Talk, I teach you how to grow your business leveraging the latest technology that's out right now. Now, when I say technology, I could be showing you how to use your camera on your iPhone. I could be showing you how to get the most out of a piece of software, how to create a website. It's literally all about talking technology for entrepreneurs because that's something we're seriously lacking. I see a lot of people talk about tech, but none of it is really focused on the entrepreneur out there. And we got to go sit through an hour-long training just to be able to figure out this one thing we're trying to learn. Okay, so I get this question too. Do you have to have the latest and greatest tech? And this is one of those things I struggle with when I first came online and called myself building a business. Because when I first got started, I spent about maybe $500 at the pawn shop. I got me a PC that I can afford, which I think was about around $300, $350. Let's call it $300, $350. I also got me the little headset that you could put over your head and you pull it down and had the little microphone. And if you go back to some of my older videos on some of my older YouTube channels, then you'll be able to see that whole setup. All that was done on a PC. And oftentimes, more times than not, what happens is we look around and I seen everybody on a MacBook Pro. I mean, I so badly wanted a MacBook Pro. And then it was this thing where if you want to be a true creator, you have to be on a MacBook Pro. And for a long time, I couldn't afford a MacBook Pro. I got what I could afford, which was the PC and that over-the-ear headset with a little microphone. And then on top of that, I went out and I bought me a webcam. And that webcam was like 720p. We're talking about 2007, well, not 2007, probably 2008, either middle or late 2008 is when I went out and bought this stuff. So what I want you to understand is you don't have to have the latest and greatest tech. And to be honest with you, today, if you're trying to build a business online, the camera phone in your pocket will work. And I'm telling you, I created an entire video series course just using a camera in my pocket. Now, I didn't put it out because of other reasons, but the picture quality and all that stuff was pretty cool. And there's other people out here that then created entire courses around just their phone in their pocket. Now, when I say that, let's be clear. If you have an Android in your pocket, or if you have an iPhone in your pocket, an iPhone, let's say 7 and above, you're fine. If you have an Android in your phone, any of the Samsungs, you're definitely going to be fine. What you have to understand about technology is always changing. So if you go out and you try to keep up with the Joneses, or you try to get the latest, greatest of everything, you're going to be spending a lot of money. You're going to have a long learning curve, because remember, every time we buy something, we're introducing new complexities into our world. Now, quick story on this. I went out and bought the camera that you can't see, but it's up here. It's a Sony a6400 because I so badly wanted to be able to create 4K video. You know what happened? This laptop could not handle it. This is my 13-inch MacBook Pro Touch Bar. So i5, I went out, I bought it. This couldn't handle it. And as a result, I still wind up using that a6400 to record in 1080p, because this laptop will fly through 1080p. You throw 4K at it, it's not going to work. It's going to come down to a stutter almost. And the cool thing about it is, when I got this 13-inch MacBook Pro right here, this is a 2016. You know when I bought this? I bought it when this one died on me. Now, here's what I want you to understand. This right here is my very first MacBook Pro. So I'll never throw it away. To me, it'll always be me showing what I can do when I actually put my mind to it. So you can see this MacBook Pro has been through some things. We still had dongles on the side and everything. This is a 2010. This is a late 2010 model MacBook Pro. I only got rid of this because under here, my logic board went out. So I had to take my hard drive out and I put everything back together. But before I did that, I actually had an SSD up in here to make it a little bit faster, because I didn't want to go buy a new MacBook Pro. So I took out my old external hard drive with the spinner drive, put it in solid state, and this was back to super fast. I could edit off here and everything. Now, it was always 1080p, and I did not go out looking for a new laptop. Like, I had this laptop from 2010 all the way up to 2016 when my logic board went out. Once my logic board went out, I went and bought this one, and I didn't go to the store and buy this. I bought this off one of my friends. He didn't like it. I think I gave him about $1,200 for it, and that's how I got this one. And I've had it ever since, until I got my a6400 and realized I couldn't use it for 4K video. This was my true you can do everything moment. It took me a lot of time to save up for it, but I did it. I was super proud of myself, and yeah, I got this. So now it sits over there on my shelf as a reminder that I can do anything I put my mind to. So after I got the a6400, I still rocked with this, and for another, I want to say 7 to 8 months easily before I decided to jump out there and get another MacBook Pro. And when I left that MacBook Pro, I came to this MacBook Pro, which this MacBook Pro is a 2019 with an i9 processor up in it, which I knew should have no problems with being able to edit 4K. Now, fun fact about this MacBook Pro struggled with 4K. If I just give it one 4K clip, depending upon the length of it, if it's like a 10-15 minute video, you good. But if you give it like let's say a 1 hour long 4K video, you color rate and all that stuff, it's gonna struggle hard. I mean hard. And honestly, I didn't understand why, because it's an i9 processor. So I got to looking at other technologies, like the new M1 is out. Well, at this time it was the M1 Mini and the 13-inch, but I didn't want another 13-inch because I came from the 13-inch and I realized I don't like it for editing because everything is too small. Plus I wear glasses. So I was waiting on the 16-inch to come out. Then when the 16-inch inch coming out. I was like, okay, I want to go get it. But then when I thought about it, like, why am I introducing this new laptop into my workflow? Because I had got so accustomed to dealing with the small little issues that I couldn't justify going out giving Apple $6,000 for a high-end MacBook Pro. Then a funny thing happened. Premiere made me mad because when I was creating my first course, which was recently, my colors wasn't coming out right. When I did some research online, it seems like a common problem that everybody has. Adobe came out with a LUT for you to drop on your colors after you've done all your color grading during export. But when you do that, it makes your image lighter. So now you got to go in and play with your exposure to see how bright do you need it before you do it. But because I wasn't the best at my light setup, I would have a harsh light always in my face after I set my exposure and dropped the thing on. So long story short, I decided to drop that, picked up DaVinci Resolve. First I went to Final Cut Pro, but Final Cut Pro, I liked it, but it just infuriated me that Final Cut Pro didn't have adjustment layers. And that to me was like one of the simplest things you should have in a editor. So I didn't go with Final Cut Pro. I did like the fact that when I color graded on Final Cut Pro, my images came out exactly how it looked on screen. So I was like, okay, whatever. I went over to DaVinci Resolve. I spent like $348. It was like $350 plus tax because I got the speed editor with DaVinci Resolve, and that was my Christmas gift to myself this past Christmas. Well, 2021 Christmas, this 2022 now. And what I realized is when I go out to export, if I export a 4K video footage out of DaVinci Resolve, when I tell you it is super fast, while I would wait maybe 2-3 hours for Premiere to render and export, DaVinci Resolve will export that same video in a matter of minutes. I'm talking about like 15 to 20 minutes. And we're talking about 45-minute videos. Same ones I was doing in Premiere, it renders it super duper fast. So now I'm at the stage where I want a MacBook Pro. I really do. I want it. But now I don't have a bottleneck in my business that makes me frustrated. And the only time you should actually go out and spend money on new technologies or the latest technologies is when you're dealing with something in your business, a bottleneck that every time you hit that wall, it infuriates you. It takes you out of your creative mode and it forces you to focus on that thing. Technology should be something that allows you to express your creativity and get out your way. Meaning, yes, I'm working on a MacBook Pro, but I shouldn't feel like I'm working on a MacBook Pro. I should feel like I'm sitting down writing an article or creating a video. Like right now, I'm working on a Sony a7C. However, I don't feel like I'm working on a Sony a7C. I feel like I'm focused on creating a nice video that I can put up later because the technology does what I needed to do and it gets out my way. That was something Steve Jobs talked about a lot. And I didn't understand it at the time. But once you start hitting these bottlenecks in your business, take a look at your workflow and figure out what piece needs to come out and what new piece you need to replace. And also look at if you replace that piece, do you subsequently have to replace another piece? So for example, when I bought the A6400, I had to get a more powerful laptop. Had I known that when I got the A6400, I probably still would have done it, but it would have at least made me pull back and hold off a little bit longer so I could have got both of them at the same time. And when I bought my MacBook Pro, I bought this MacBook Pro right here off one of my friends because he got it, he didn't like it. So I bought it from him and it came with like 2 years of Applecare. So right now it's still under Applecare Warranty. So I'm not out here just spending money recklessly. I'm saving, I'm getting deals where I can, and where I can't get a good deal, then I'll go to Apple and give Apple that money. But if I can buy it online for a little bit cheaper and get that blanket of security, which is insurance on it, then I always go that way. So I'm not bent on I have to have the latest, greatest. Sure, I want something new enough to get the job done that I wanted to do. So don't think for a second you have to go out and buy the latest, greatest thing from Apple or somebody else. I would recommend you check out your local pawn shops and things like that before it. Or another good one you can do is go over to Amazon, type in renewed, and they'll bring up all of the products that's refurbished and you can buy it from there as well. Same thing is true with B&H. Every website you go to has a refurbished department. I would definitely look there before I kick out a lot of ducats if I were you. Now, why should we use technology, or why do we use technology, or why should you use technology? If you are someone who's on the fence, why should you use technology? It's really simple. Building a business, technology makes our life super simple, super easy. So the last thing we want to do is try to do everything manually. Like for example, if I open up an app right now called Drafts, I have certain templates in Draft that I could just click on and it gives me my YouTube template. And now I just go through filling that out while I'm doing my research. And at the the end of it, I have my 3 talking points. I have my opening sentence. I know what the theme of the video is. I know where I'm going. I know what I want to communicate to the viewer, all that good stuff. And it's not something I have to keep redoing. So technology makes our life easier. If you look at your phone, if you have an iPhone, then you have shortcuts. If you're not using shortcuts on your iPhone, you're missing out on a lot of great automation. If you're on a Mac, it's a lot of cool apps out there that you can leverage to make your life easier. One of the easiest ones you can use is Text Expander. Text Expander just allows you to type in hotkeys, and it brings up your whole little, article or script or ending or YouTube video outline or whatever. If you're not using something like Draft, so if you're on your Mac, you can use Text Expander. It's a lot of great automation out there, tools that we can use to speed up our workflow. So you don't have to spend a lot of money on technology. You don't have to be super techie, and it's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck, because I promise you, if you look at when they put the first man on the moon, our technology that we have just in our pocket or that we carry in our book bags are way more superior. So they can do that with that little technology. Imagine what we should be able to do with this technology. And the best part of all is we can have the technology only do what we need it to do. The mistake that I made for a long time was thinking I have to learn this technology and master it. But what you have to realize is if you start with something like Final Cut Pro and you learn the fundamentals, you're going to naturally, progressively learn new things about Final Cut Pro that you can add into your bag. Same thing with podcasting, same thing with article writing, same thing with creating your first website or learning design. You learn the fundamentals of something first so you're not overwhelmed. You don't try to make it the greatest baddest. You just start with the bare bone basics. And over time, you're going to actually grow your skills naturally as you want to take your projects to the next level. I really hope you feel me on this one, because you really don't have to make technology complicated. It can do what you need it to do, and that extra power up under the hood that you're not using, as you slowly build up, you'll be able to leverage it over time, and you don't have to go out and spend a fortune. If you like this video, make sure you give me a thumbs up. And in the comments below, let me know what's your favorite piece of tech that you just can't live without. I am super interested in that. For me, my favorite piece of tech that I can't live without would have to be my new speed editor that I got that's by DaVinci Resolve, because it makes my life of editing and doing all those cuts when I'm doing these type of videos so much smoother, and it makes the experience more enjoyable. So yeah, let me know what yours is below, and I'll catch you in the next video. And this was the very first video of Tech Talk. Till next time, later.